Now I'll get started with the online content. And if you have any questions at all, please write them down, put them in the comments, and I would love to hear them. And we can do, if you've got any questions, I can answer them at the end as well. Happy to do some coaching too. Okay, let's get started. Okay. So for everyone who watches the replay, I'm Thelma Vlamis. I'm a holistic counsellor and I use psychotherapeutic tools to help people feel so they can go into their inner wisdom and live more in alignment. And today's topic in my masterclass that I'm teaching is around relationships. Why are relationships challenging for me? Now, this can be something that we don't discover until we've a little later on in life, where we've had a few relationships and we've noticed this reoccurring pattern that happens, whether we attract people who maybe emotionally unavailable, or we are always finding ourselves in one relationship to the next. Maybe we have challenges around conflict in our relationships, or we are someone that maybe have never had a relationship before in our lives. So many of us can find relationships challenging. And today we're going to go into why that is, what is actually really happening in that space of relationships, and how it's connected to attachment theory, circle of security, and also the baseline that I teach all of my content from is our nervous system. Now, we've got many people know about attachment theory, and this is going to be a different sort of viewpoint around it in terms of we can Google it, we can learn about attachment theory and all the different types of attachment. Today, I'm going to connect it a little differently and bring a different perspective around it. But we do have the 4 types of attachment theory, one of them being secure. The relationships we have growing up shape whether we feel secure or insecure in our attachments as adults. Now, this is because as we get older, we need to address, become aware of how our attachments when we were young influence us today. We tend to not know about this until we've had a few relationships and we're like, oh, actually this reminds me of my home life, or maybe I'm drawing in people that remind me of my father or my mother. So that's when we start to understand it on that level. Now, each one of these, so we've got anxious avoidant and fearful avoidant. Each one of these on the nervous system level, which I'm going to go into here, is dysregulated. Apart from secure. Secure lives more up top. Yes, secure get dysregulated, but they have a different way of thinking about relationships. And I'm going to connect it to, so this is the polyvagal theory that I spoke about in the last masterclass. This is the sheet that I'm using because our vagus nerve, our sympathetic nervous system, and then our dorsal activation, all of these states in our fear response, and then our vagal nerve, which is when we activate that, we become calm and regulated. All of these have a place in how we relate to others, because we as humans we co-regulate and self-regulate. So when we are around someone else, if they're quite anxious, they may make us a little anxious, or maybe we feel their anxiety as well. If they're grounded, maybe they bring us to a more stable, grounded space. So our relationships, when we're close to people, play a huge part in our nervous system and also our trauma. So if we've grown up with lots of trauma around relationships where our caregivers were not safe or were emotionally neglectful, or maybe they were physically abusive, then what will happen is that we will not trust people as adults. And so when we get too close, we can go into a fight, flight, or a shutdown response. And that happens in the attachment styles. So I like to connect a lot of the attachment styles to polyvagal theory, and demonstrate how anxious attachment can really connect with the sympathetic activation. This is the fight-flight response. Now, we're going to go into what is it like to have an anxious attachment. Now, in a relationship, what it shows up as is we can say things like, I would die without my partner. Like, I don't even know what I would do without my partner. I cannot be alone. I feel anxious when my partner is not around. I'm often trying my best not to upset my partner. When my partner disappears from a conflict, I feel abandoned as though I did something wrong. Often in anxious attachment, and as we go through these, it's often we focus on the external person. So I'm, as an anxious person, would be focusing on the person in front of me, and I'm not aware of what is really happening in my body. I'm asking that person in front of me to behave in a certain way so I can be soothed. Now, there is no judgment in any of these attachment styles. It's what, on a subconscious level, what we grow up and how we cope with it. So what we do when we grow up and how we cope with it. So it's not that we mean to be this way. It's what has created safety for us growing up. So we may have had, as an anxious person, say anxiously attached person, we may have grown up with breadcrumbs from our caregivers. So inconsistent love, connection, and soothing. Whether that's being held when we were small infants, maybe we weren't held enough, maybe we weren't hugged enough, maybe we weren't shown how to soothe ourselves, we weren't educated in that. And so, and we could also, our caregivers, which I'll get to later on, could also be on the anxious side. So they have that anxiety that then projects onto us as well when we're young. So when we get older, we are used to feeling into the other person, meeting the other person's need to make sure that we're okay. So as that's what an anxiously attached person's often doing, is focusing on the other person and making sure that they're okay, because if they're okay, then I'm okay as an anxiously attached. So I worry I'm not good enough. Often we put other people up on pedestals. When partners' mood changes, that we're hyper aware of a mood change, a change in the environment around us. This is why people with anxiously attached backgrounds can actually be really good at group work and therapy work, because balanced out, you can notice when there's something not quite right happening in a group. You can notice when someone is maybe hiding something internally, because you can feel the shift in the mood. But out of balance, we take it personally. What have I done wrong? What did I say? Did I do something wrong? And that's how it's out of balance. I tell my partner what to do and how to act. Often we project out when we're feeling anxious and not safe, because we need our partner to act a certain way. And this is where we can get louder, yell, scream, try to get our own way as much as possible to make it okay again. Anxiously attached people love closeness and will often say, I hate being on my own, I get bored, I don't like being on my own, I always need to have someone around me. So that is the anxiously attached person. And that's probably, there's a scale of this too. I only use the names of these things as just to help us understand it. But on a nervous system level, if we removed an anxiously attached person, it would just mean that they are so reliant on the external to help them feel regulated. So they're quite often in the fight flight response. And this is how they would feel it in their body. The soothing comes when there's co-regulation with another person. And that is it. And often it might not even matter if they're healthy or unhealthy person, as long as they've got another human there to help them soothe. So often, yeah, this is where fight flight is, and we go into these sort of modes. Now let's talk about avoidantly attached. Let's go. I identify this with well, not identify is probably not the greatest word for it, but I connect it with the shutdown, freeze, and fawn response, because avoidant is, it's also probably in the flight area too. So they will come up here as well, flighty, as well as avoid, which is like numbing out, shutting down, and avoiding any deep emotional sort of feelings that people may give them, like any sort of dysregulation in the system. Avoidantly attached people want to keep away from. So the thought processes here is, when I'm in relationship, it feels like my freedom is taken away from me and I have to do everything for everyone else. So someone with more of an avoidant attachment, they don't need a lot of closeness. They actually prefer distance from people because it means that they can come back to self. Because what happens in relationship with someone who's got an avoidant attachment is that they don't know how to express their needs and boundaries. So they project it out in terms of it's the other person's fault, and they just take from me all the time. I can't trust them. I can't trust them with my needs. So on a subconscious level, they're like, I won't even express it because I can't trust people. And so this space here, they will be more shut down to people's big emotions too. So like, at the bottom I've got suck it up, stop making a big deal out of it, I hate drama, I'm not, it's not that bad, so minimizing it. People can't be trusted, I feel more superior to others and see myself in a better light than others. Generally that's like the protective mode, to keep the distance. I don't see the point in conflict, so I don't engage, I leave the room or environment, or I just don't say anything at all. That's generally a shutdown response. The nervous system is actually shutting down and just trying to get through to not make it worse. So probably going into a fawn response there. I feel people always take from me and don't consider what I want, so I feel used. I get the ick when my partner is needy. It drives, that's maybe drives me crazy that my partner has to go on about something that upsets them, won't let it go. Avoidantly attached people generally let go of things very quickly, but what they're actually doing is suppressing it. So even though it feels like they've let it go, it's generally they haven't, because to let go of something, we really need to feel it and let it go naturally. Usually letting go means that we're able to process and resolve, and then it lets go naturally. Crying and showing negative emotions is weak. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Everyone should just take care of themselves. So this is quite a big one. I'm not responsible for your feelings. So I'm independent, you are independent. It's very much a divide, like you take care of you, I'll take care of me. Because the fear of codependency, but that in itself is actually a codependent ask, is to say you need to be over there, I need to be over here, and when anything comes up you take responsibility of yourself, because what I'm doing there is I'm trying to control your behavior to make myself feel better. Anytime we're trying to control another person's behavior to regulate our nervous system, that is a codependent relationship. So avoidant people can think that anxiously attached are very codependent, and that's because an anxiously attached person really loves to spend lots and lots of time with another person, and that's how they're regulated. Whereas an avoidantly attached, they like to spend they like to have their own time, which is the way that they can regulate. So neither one of those, like secure relating. What is interdependency? So interdependency is more, I will meet your needs as long as I'm not self-abandoning my needs. So I will meet your needs, and it will energize me to meet your needs. So I'll know my limitations, I'll know my boundaries, and vice versa. That is interdependency. Knowing that other people will have needs and I am influencing the other person's needs and nervous system. So we're actually quite connected in that sense. Everyone should just take care of themselves. I've said that one. I like being on my own because that means I can just be myself and care for myself and not worry about meeting other people's needs. I don't need anyone. So it's very much them, me, and I don't really trust anyone in that space. So if we're going to bring it together, actually, I'll go in. I'll go into this space here. Generally, when I'm avoidantly attached, I do numb out a lot. I minimize, I people please, I self abandon. I become unmotivated and stuck. And the reason why I go into this space is because if I spend too much time with someone, I might be fawning in that space, and then I get really drained, which reinforces that other people take from me, and then I need to step back and take and go into my own space so I can re-energize. Both, often they say, like, avoidantly attached will say, that being on my own is the only way I can soothe. But generally, when they're on their own, they're using coping mechanisms as well. So we're not really soothing in this place, we're suppressing. And we're not really soothing in this place in fight flight because we're reliant on someone else to soothe us. So an anxiously attached person, the thing that they need the most is to learn how to self-regulate. And an avoidantly attached person, the thing that they need the most is to learn how to regulate with others and to express their boundaries, and to do that in a safe space. So leaning in for the avoidant and leaning out for the anxiously attached generally is important. Another thing for the anxiously attached is that on a subconscious level, they believe that they're a lot weaker than someone who's maybe even more avoidantly attached. An anxiously attached person attracts an avoidantly attached, and vice versa, because they're the opposites of each other. And what is happening is the avoidantly attached really likes the anxiously attached. Playful expressiveness, ability to speak their truth, and that is attractive to them because it's something that they have suppressed themselves. And on the other hand, the anxiously attached finds the avoidantly attached person super attractive because of their persona of independence. And it seems like they're very grounded and self regulated. But what is actually really happening is they're just not expressing their needs and desires. So, this is the unhealed connection and attachment that we can have. And then when the honeymoon period is over, what happens is it becomes more sometimes abusive, in the sense of the anxiously attached person feels neglected again, kind of like childhood, doesn't feel like their needs are getting met, doesn't feel like they're emotionally being met. So feels quite starved of deep connection. And the avoidantly attached person, if they haven't done any of work, so either one of them, feels suffocated and like their partner's being needy, and it feels like they're being pushed all over and maybe controlled, and their freedom's taken away. So then there's this sort of dynamic that happens where many people find themselves in, if you have not looked at this pattern and sort of started to heal these patterns. What we do is we find ourselves in the polar opposite, attracting this. Anxious can attract anxious, avoidant can attract avoidant as well. It just looks a bit different, and it may be expressed. I know that two people with an avoidantly attached um, attachment style, they will just not sort of deal with anything and probably have a really long-term relationship, but not have dealt with any of the relationships challenges. So in the end, it does tend to break down. The anxiously attached people, it tend to stay fairly stagnant in terms of not being able to grow and to become independent and individuate as well. So just to know that they have their strength on their own too. So there are, if we don't come out of it, we are kind of stagnating our growth as well. Again, it's on a subconscious level that we do this. We absolutely do not do this because we mean to. We are doing this from a place of childhood attachments, what comes familiar for our nervous system. So I haven't spoken about fearful avoidant yet, because what fearful avoidant has a bit of both. So they can fall into both. We can all fall into different as well. We can all fall into anxious avoidant depending on the environment, depending on the people, depending on the situation. The fearful avoidant tends to have had more dysregulation growing up from neglect, abuse, it's generally, or even just a lot of trauma, really. All attachments, insecure attachments, there's trauma. Fearful avoidant has had sort of both. So it's had the neglectful, kind of not much touch, not much co-regulation, very little play, all those things, and then also dismissed when they had any emotions. So they've got a bit of both. And how this shows up in relationship is I absolutely do not trust people. So I will have a very negative view of myself and them. So the avoidant has a negative view of others and not themselves, and the anxious has a negative view of themselves and not others. So they put others on a pedestal. The fearful avoidant will, as soon as they get close to someone, they will start to look for evidence of not being able to trust the person, betrayal, and the story will get very loud, the voice will get very loud. And this is for both anxious and avoidant as well. Our thought processes really connect to this. So for fearful avoidant, it will tend to be like, oh, see, I knew I couldn't trust them. They're just going to use me, or they are not safe. They're just untrustworthy. And so they will try to find the evidence on a subconscious level to demonstrate that this person's not trustworthy. And this is because they have had so much trauma with humans growing up that their protector is really quite loud online saying, just watch yourself, because you could get hurt again, and that is not what you want. So it's really important that we can, for all the attachment styles, that we can get a deeper understanding of our protector that comes in and tries to sabotage our relationships with others. There is a part of it where it is protecting us and we need boundaries, and that's probably why it's coming up, to express boundaries, our feelings, our upsets, anything like that. Where it sabotages us is when we believe the stories without connecting with the person and actually getting the truth, because the story generally isn't the reality. It's the activation that has the truth in it. The activation will say, hey, there's something up here. The story will make us kind of disconnect and maybe create a story around the person. But we need to connect in with the truth, and that's the most important part. That's what therapy helps you do, is to become the observer of your protector. And so here I've got the circle of security, and I got it from this website here. I was meant to come up with the link, but it hasn't. You'll see Circle of Security International. That's what it's actually called. Circle of Security is taught to new mothers after having a baby. And this is quite big in Queensland. But the interesting thing about this is that it really connects to us as adults as well. So the way that we can reparent ourselves is through the circle of security. We can parent our children, but we can also parent our little inner child that is the one generally on a subconscious level in charge of attracting certain partners into our lives. And it's not until we create a dialogue with that part of us, the inner child, that we can start to understand how it thinks, how it's actually really ruling our behavior, and how it can sometimes dismiss red flags or unhealthy situations. So the circle of security is all about being secure base and safe haven. And our attachment style very much comes from not having a secure base or safe haven. And that's why we get an insecure attachment style. Now, up the top here, we have the child that's going out to explore. the exploration stage. So in this phase, we really, really need an encouraging parent that is supportive, that is not constantly trying to control us. Now, the opposite of this supportive, encouraging parent is someone that has lots of anxiety and that wants to control us in every way because they fear, they're parenting us through fear. And with that, the regulation, the self-regulation doesn't tend to happen in the sense of if I'm fearful as a parent, I'm going to put that onto my child. They will feel that fear. They're very observant. They take on your fear, your nervous system. And so when they go out to explore, they might become quite anxious. And so that is why we can get the anxious attachment, because we are not being shown how to self-regulate. We are being shown that the world is scary and that we need to make sure that we control our environment. And sometimes even we're not encouraged to step out of our comfort zone because our parents have fear in that themselves. So stepping out of the comfort zone and widening our ability to step out of our comfort zone is generally in the exploration stage. If we don't get that growing up, then we need to then reparent ourselves to be able to do that. So then we come back around, say we go explore, we're on the playground, we fall, we come back around to safe haven. Now, this is where the parent has a choice to comfort us, delight in us, organize our feelings. So this is what it means to hold space for someone, to protect them, to support them, to validate them, and if where possible, to meet their needs. Now, if our parent was busy, they didn't have the emotional skills, they were quite judgmental towards emotions themselves. Don't be needy, don't be weak, suck it up, I don't like seeing you crying. Then this creates a suppression and an avoidant attachment. So we suppress our emotions, we suppress our vulnerability because it wasn't safe to express it to our caregivers. What we need in those moments is a safe space to express our emotions and co-regulation. So if we don't get that co-regulation, we learn it's not safe to go to others to regulate and to be seen and to be heard and to for them to meet our needs. So that's why we create that avoidant attachment. On the outside of the circle is where the disorganized and fearful avoidant lives. And this is because they didn't get either of these. So it was quite neglectful. They didn't get the controlling parent, but they also didn't get the support and encouragement. They didn't get the comforting parent, but they also didn't get maybe they also got punished or physically, sexually abused. Generally is the fearful avoidant on the outside. It's repetitive abuse and trauma. And so this is where you can have both. How do we heal that? We heal it through understanding our protector, reparenting ourselves, and noticing when I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, what do I need? What support do I need? And that doesn't mean I need to do it on my own as an adult. I might have resources, a therapist, someone's a community, an organization, sporting group. Who is my community? Who is my support when I'm stepping out of my comfort? And then when I hurt myself or when someone says something hurtful to me, who's there for me? Who's a safe haven? Who's there for me? Am I there for me, or do I just dismiss my feelings because I've internalized that from my caregivers? I've internalized that from when I was growing up. I was dismissed a lot. Down here in the avoidant, attached, this is where we really need to connect with our feelings. This is what therapy is all about. It's about connecting in a safe space with your feelings, because it's connecting back with the inner vulnerable child that didn't get that connection and that was judged or punished or dismissed or minimized for having emotions. And what happens when we have all those things happen, we suppress or repress. And what we really want to do is to be able to express it in healthy ways. But that is about it. That is the reason why we can find relationships is challenging is because it's connected very much to our upbringing and our attachments when we were young, and then also to our nervous system as adults and what we can healthily handle while we're adults. Have you got any questions, Janet?
I don't have any questions, but I could absolutely relate to all of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tell me, what did you relate to? I'd love to hear.
My relationships, and there's been plenty of those, and pretty much a pattern that's gone through each of them. Even my most recent ones, I guess I'm a slow learner.
We all are, don't worry. we all take some time to learn.
Yeah, and I could really see the anxious and avoidant come out in myself and my ex-partner in different ways. Yeah, like you said, you can be both.
Yes.
And you can be fearful avoidant as well, and I can see all of them in both of us.
Yes.
Yeah, because
yes.
it was interesting because when we first started our relationship, which lasted 10 years, he was coming from a place of like he had to be right beside me all of the time, and it was kind of suffocating for me. We lived together for a while, and I had to ask him to move out because I couldn't take, just being so close and wanting to do everything with me all of the time.
Yes.
Yeah. And then it seemed to change after that, where he became the avoidant. Yeah. Yeah, very much.
And did you lean, then you wanted to lean in more?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And that's when arguments started, and the fighting and the yelling, yeah, it's so interesting,
It is, yeah. Even what you're bringing in around when the shift happened, when he went more avoidant and then you became more anxious, and that's definitely a dynamic that can happen as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And then I got into coaching and started doing the work, and yeah, so and it changed again.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so interesting. And then he became, and I think he was coming from a fearful avoidant place in maybe all the way through. Yeah, because of his childhood. And I can see from my childhood too, where a lot of the abusive behaviours came into my relationships, getting married to an abusive man and all that kind of thing too. Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not until you later on that you see that, you said I'm a slow learner, and I also think like it's not until we know and we have the awareness and then we see the patterns. Because what happens when we're in it, we just think this is our bubble, like it's our relationship. And it's not until you understand attachment theory and you get to know that, and then it's like, oh, this is actually, there's something around the behavioral stuff that's happening here. It's common within people who have this style, and so there's like it's happening to many relationships out there. So you're not the only one as well.
Yeah, and just everything that you talked about, I'm going, yeah, I can so relate to that. Even dismissing the red flags, right from the beginning of our new relationship, and I'm going, there were so many red flags, but I just kept dismissing them.
Yes, and that's really common to dismiss and minimize them because often like that's like what happens with when you're a bit more avoidantly attached. You'll minimize them too. It might not even be just dismissing, but it could be also minimizing, like, oh, he's not that bad, or he hasn't done it, was okay, I can handle it, kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Mm.
it has to be really loud for you to go, oh, wait a minute, no, this is not good.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um,
Mhm.
what's what's the uh, what's the learning process, I suppose? What's the process of moving out of that and getting into a place where you can be in relationships that are, you
Yeah.
know, comfortable and loving, and where both people have grown enough to see what's happening? I
Yes.
guess it's just doing the
Yeah.
work.
$1 million question. It is doing the work, and also for someone that I think for both people, anxiously avoidant, fearful avoidant, because we're so in it, it's really hard to see when, like, so with a friend of mine, and with clients, it's a bit different. But with a friend of mine, I'm able to say to her, "Are you minimizing this situation?" Because she's doing the work as well, and she'll be like, "Oh, I think I don't know." And sometimes it's delayed for her, so she'll sort of go the next day. She'll be like, "I was, I was minimizing that situation. I was dismissing it." And so it's not until and especially for the work that I do in therapies, I always go into the body. What's the sensation? What's the feeling? I don't know. I'm numb. Okay. So that's a really good indicator that you're avoiding something, like something is edgy, something is not, like a bit stressful, uncomfortable, and your physiology is like, nope, we're gonna numb out, we're gonna avoid that. So on an autonomic response, not in your control, it's numbing it out. But what is in your control is the feeling of the numbness. Ah, I'm numbing it out, so it must be something. And then becoming curious about that thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And it might take a bit of time to come out of the numbing. And
Mm.
once you come out of it, or like you might need to do something in between, or you might just be like, oh, I'm numbing. So then your observer comes on and you say, oh, okay, so it's an I don't know and I'm numbing. What if I sit with it for a little and give myself some time? And then something might come up.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a
Wow.
lot of body awareness, sensation, feelings, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That was so interesting. I really loved. I'm glad I could make it to this one.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Jenna. Is there anything, did that answer your question? Was there anything more that could support you with that?
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the only other question I had was, as you were talking about it, was, I think I'm both, but then you answered that anyway.
Yeah, a lot of people do think they're both, but the interesting thing is it people who are fearful avoidant feel like they're anxiously attached,
Mm.
um, because the avoidant part can just sneak in different ways. And people who are avoidant can sometimes feel like both, because when you're avoidant, when you come out of the numbing, you become anxious. So you're coming up the ladder.
Mm.
So it can feel like you're more in the avoidant as well. But we can also, yeah, go into each one. Everyone can go into each one in
Yeah.
different situation and environments. But the thing with the avoidant, generally the suppression and the numbing feels like I'm fine. Like that's actually what you could, like, people say, I'm fine. And that's a
Mm.
really good indicator that there's something happening. And then the feeling of anxiety then comes up. And because an avoidant is trying to uh, avoid anxiety, then they do something that shuts it back down again. So that's actually where alcoholism comes from. It's like I'm feeling really uncomfortable. The flight response comes in. I'll have some alcohol, but then it suppresses me, like it pushes me back down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why it's like a numbing, the alcohol sort of numbing things out. But then when I'm off the alcohol, I come back up and I'm feeling anxious again. And the only way I know to soothe that is by drinking. So that's where that sort of addiction cycle can come in. And it can come in with anything. People can be addicted to external validation, work, whatever it is. And it's kind of like suppressing the anxiety, or like, yeah, suppressing it, numbing it out, distracting. But it keeps us in that shutdown.
Yeah. Yep. I recognise all of that too.
Yeah.
With alcohol. And then I haven't had a drink for quite a few years now, but alcohol did become a big part of that.
Yes.
Keeping it suppressed. And then it became, mindless stuff on TV, because that's just, numbing out still too.
Yeah, that's why social media, like Instagram and all those sort of things, that can do it too. That's so great that you've come so far. Sounds like you've done a lot of work and you've come a long way.
Yeah, I have. And it's so good to be able to recognise all of that.
Yes.
From where I've come from.
Yeah.
To now. Yeah.
Yeah, great. The last thing I would suggest in the, like, how can I go into more of a healthy relationship, for someone who has more of an avoidantly attached style, I would look into stepping into the emotional work, but doing it somatically. So body-based work, because that's like the last piece I tend to see for someone with more avoidantly attached. I mean, it's also for anxiously attached, but avoidantly, generally, like, you have big feelings that have been suppressed. So if you can do somatic work in that space, that would be really beneficial. I do a bit of that work as well. But if you have someone, where do you live? Where are you based?
Queensland.
Queensland. Oh, you're based in Queensland. Yeah, there might be someone close to you. Are you on Sunshine Coast?
No, Rockhampton. So
Rockhampton, you're higher up.
Yeah.
So you can do it online, but you can also do it if there's someone close by. But yeah, somatic work absolutely is probably the next step for you, I'd say, doing the body work.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Mm.
And if it sounds a bit like scary, then that's probably meant to it's the work. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're so very welcome. And I'll see you at the next one, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you. And if I can get the replays, that would be amazing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'll double check. I'll make sure that I can put you on the list. Now that I know it's in your spam, then I'll check for you. Yeah, I'll do that. But I'm also on YouTube, so if you put Thelma Vlamis in, it should come up on YouTube.
All righty, will do.
Awesome. See you later, Janet. Bye.
Next